Welcome to the first episode of the Power Law Investor. Today is August 20th, 2024, and we'll be talking about the allocation into different crypto assets that follow the Power Law, uh, assuming that we're investing about $100 a day, and we'll be tracking the performance of that crypto portfolio over time. This is also useful if we were looking to deploy a bulk amount and what is the target allocation that we would want to. So let me be clear that this is not financial advice. This is for informational purposes only. Please do your own due diligence and research. These are my thoughts on how I would be using the power laws to be making investment allocations going forward. Okay, so let's jump straight into it. Let me introduce the power law triangle over here, which you can see in front of you. This is simply telling us that what is the target allocation over here that we want, and it splits it up into three assets that we're going to be moving in between. Let me just put those in a different color over here. That's going to be Kaspa, Bitcoin, and Cash. And the assumption is that we're going to be moving between these three assets. And based on what the pricing of the asset is at a current moment in time and what the power law is telling us. So as you can see, this is what the current pricing is right now, with Kaspa trading at $0.165, and we have Bitcoin at around 59,411. And on this triangle, we also have what the expected annual returns are going to be. In Kaspa, it's north of 400%, almost 450%, and for Bitcoin, it's about 80%. And Cash, we've assumed, has a 0% return. So I'll explain how these numbers and expected returns were calculated. And this is my interpretation of using the power law to go into crypto assets that I feel will give the maximum return over the upcoming crypto cycle. Now, it's important to know that I'm not the discoverer of the power law. I will tell you how I'm using this discovery, which was made by Giovanni. And you can do a search for Giovanni and power law on YouTube or on X and find lots of details about this if you want to dig into it. But this is my interpretation and my analysis of the phenomena that he discovered and the theory that he's using, and to interpret it and how I would leverage my funds going between these three different assets. So we've already talked about the crypto, the power law triangle over here. Let's move on to the next one, which is, this is just giving you real-time information on what the value of Bitcoin and Kaspa is today on August 20th, 2024. And this is a live updated price from CoinMarketCap. So as you can see, the numbers are slightly different from what shows up in the triangle over here, but they're broadly the same because the prices in my analysis update only once a day, and this is the live price. So how do we understand the power law? Here's how I derive the equations for the power law. We take the log of the days since Genesis on the x-axis over here, and we take the log of the price on the y-axis over here. And it turns out that we can draw a straight line through the price action with a very good R squared fit. So the important thing to notice over here is this particular equation over here. This is telling us that the equation of this straight line over here, as highlighted in orange, has this equation. Here are the parameters, and the R squared, which is a measure of how tightly the real price matches the equation. And at 0.953 over here, it's pretty damn good. So it's saying a lot of the variation, almost all the variation in the price is explained by this line. And you can see visually too, it makes a lot of sense. You can see that straight line drawing through it. And that's where the strength of the power law really holds. When we convert this into linear time and price, which let me show you that graph over here. Let's make that happen. Here we go. It allows us to make a prediction on what we think the price is going to be over time. And if we look back on the R squared fit, it is a very good level of R squared. It's a very good level of fit. So this helps us understand that, or at least gives us a strong some strong evidence that if this trend continues in the future, what the expected return might be. And so that's what I've calculated over here. You can see, let me jump into a different color, that this is what it's telling us over here. So what this tells us is that right now, the trend value of Bitcoin would be about $74,000. Uh, and what we expect in a year's time, based on the current price, the return might be is almost 50%. And what we'd expect in a year's time, what we have the expected return to be, right? And those are pretty fantastic numbers for those of us who are investing in financial assets. Looking at an annualized return of 80% is, you're not quite doubling it, but you're making 80 cents for every dollar that you put in, which is quite remarkable. And we can zoom in into this a little bit more so you can see how this is actually done by moving on to the next graph over here. And again, you can see what the prediction here is. And for a minute, we can just ignore these lines over here. It's just showing is what if you were at a discount to the trend line. But what it's saying is, hey, that current price in August should be around $74,000. And right now it's trading at about $59,000. So you're getting at a discount to what the trend line is. That's great. But let's move on to doing a similar analysis for Kaspa over here. And Kaspa is another cryptocurrency that is following the power law. And to my knowledge, only Bitcoin and Kaspa are following the power law to such a strong extent. There are other cryptocurrencies that are following it partially, but really it's the Bitcoin and Kaspa that are the big players in terms of how tightly they're following a power law. Let's take a look at that. So this, as you can see, is for Kaspa, not for Bitcoin over here. Let's again clean this up. And we can see over here that we also have a fantastic fit. The R squared is 0.95, showing that's explained very well. But the equation is different. Even though the parameters of the equation are different, it's following the overall form. And another thing to notice over here is that the number of valid days is 812 versus if we go and look at Bitcoin, we will see that we had almost 5,000 plus days over here. So again, let's clean that up. What this is telling us is the number of valid days that we have is much higher in Bitcoin than in Kaspa. And you'll see why this is important a little bit into the future. But as we go forward into this, you'll notice that for Kaspa, the expected returns are much, much, much higher than in Bitcoin. You can see that it's at a discount to the trend value of 35%. That means it's 35% below what the trend value would be, which you can see also from this section over here because it's below this orange line. But the expected return in 6 months, if it follows trend, is 204%. That means for every dollar that you're putting in 6 months, we expect to get $2 back in profit. And the expected return over a year is 450%, which is fantastic. So let's assume that these numbers hold. The question would be, well, why do you think we should not put all the resources into Kaspa? Rather, why is it in the triangle that I showed earlier that we are looking with an allocation of just 55% to Kaspa and 25% to Bitcoin? Wouldn't we want to put everything into Kaspa? And this is when the reliability comes in again, because we're just not as sure about the validity of the Kaspa power law, because we only have 812 days of data versus 5,000 plus days of data for Bitcoin. However, it is a rather compelling opportunity. And with this in mind, I've developed a way to incorporate both the risk and reward of investing in Kaspa versus Bitcoin versus being in cash, how confident I am, and what is the opportunity. And that what leads us to this algorithmically derived Kaspa triangle, the power law triangle over here, which you can see. So trying to understand all this together is saying, let's put it in a simple spreadsheet. Today is the 20th of August. We had, assuming that we had $10,000 in cash and we're looking to deploy $100 of it daily. How would I do that? What I'm doing is following the target allocation. Here's my Bitcoin target allocation of about 25%. So I've bought a little bit of Bitcoin over here, 0.0004, and I've also bought some Kaspa into the portfolio, and I've kept 20% in cash. Now, balancing risk and reward is always going to be a little bit of a struggle, and we all have different thoughts around this and different risk profiles. But I found it prudent to maintain some amount in cash because there are all kinds of opportunities that do come up over time. And if the price does drop down and the deal becomes even better, we want to have cash to deploy and not be fully deployed. So again, let's just come into I'll be updating these regularly over the next days and weeks. So you'll be able to track the progress over time and see how the portfolio grows or doesn't grow and how it responds. But the important thing is to realize that here's the Power Law Investor allocation for today, August 20th. At Kaspa, we've deployed $100 in. We've deployed $100, of which 55 went into Kaspa, 25 went into Bitcoin, and 20 remained in cash. We expect an annual return of about 450% through Kaspa and about 80% into Bitcoin. So we'll see how the product or how this project evolves, and I will be updating these calculations on a regular basis, at least on a weekly basis. So these updates will be coming out hopefully on a weekly basis, depending on your guys' feedback, might come out a little bit more. If you have any suggestions for improvements or other thoughts, please comment below. And if you like the content and would like to see more, please like and subscribe. Thank you, and see you again soon.